I want to turn to tax reform. President Trump continues his push to overhaul the tax code, and he signaled his willingness to work with Democrats this week if Republicans are unable to come together. Yesterday, the commander-in-chief also vowed to fight for the middle class.
The wealthy Americans are not my priority. My priority are people in the middle class, and that's where we're giving the big tax reduction to. It's about the middle class, and it's about jobs, and it's about bringing jobs back to the country, bringing back the companies back, so that companies can get a reduction. Right now, we're paying the highest tax rate in the world. We want to bring that to around 15%.
This coming as Vice President Pence will travel to his home state of Indiana next week to drum up support on tax reform. Joining me right now is Indiana Congresswoman Susan Brooks. Congresswoman, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Maria. Good to be here.
If you could take us behind the curtain in terms of that meeting, you met with the president on Wednesday to talk about tax reform. What was your takeaway?
There were about 15 members of Congress there who really all did participate. Everyone got to speak to the president about tax reform. He let the Democrats in the room know that we're moving ahead on tax reform. He'd like their cooperation on tax reform because it's so important. It's his top priority, I think, besides keeping the American people safe. But he asked for their cooperation on tax reform. He listened to everybody, what their concerns might be, and really wants this to be a bipartisan effort. However, did indicate that if we can't get bipartisan support, we're going to move ahead. And it's that important. Well, focused on middle class, focused on lowering the corporate tax rate, focused on bringing trillions of dollars that are parked overseas back into this country in order to invest in American jobs.
Yeah, I like everything that you're saying because it sounds like those items will, in fact, move the needle on economic growth. The problem is not the Democrats, though, it doesn't seem like. It's the Republicans. Are you going to be able to get your party all on the same page to actually get this done?
Well, we are working on that, and I know certainly the big six, the folks who've been at the table really hashing these things out, are continuing to work through any disagreements there might be. At the end of September, we're going to get the framework of how we're going to go forward. But Chairman Brady has had, so many hearings and meetings and discussions. Tax reform has been in the works for a number of years. This isn't something new. It's something that the Republican majority has been working on for a long time. And I'm hoping that everyone can come together and we can help the middle class, which is what the president's top priority is.
Well, that's the top priority, but we know that the highest earners pay the most tax, right? I mean, isn't that true? That you've got one portion of the country paying 90% or 70% of the tax. It's 70% of the tax, and yet you're not going to cut taxes on the people who pay the taxes. So how's that a tax cut?
Well, I think those are the type of details that are being worked out as to whether or not. I think if we could lower the taxes for everyone, that would be better. If more people can take home more of their hard-earned dollars, I think that would be best. And so lowering the rates at all levels would be terrific.
So do you need this to be revenue neutral? I mean, yesterday we had Senator Ted Cruz on the program who said it doesn't need to be revenue neutral. Why are we looking at a 10-year period when we could look at 15 years, 20 years? What's your take on actually having this plan be revenue neutral, which we know is going to be, you'll have to come up with revenue somewhere if that's the case?
Well, it's all about growth. And that is what the hope is that by lowering these rates, by ensuring that we can bring more revenue back into this country.
So revenue neutral or not,
we can bring those dollars. Well, I would say that it is very important over a long period of time that we grow this economy. I'm waiting. I'm not on the Ways and Means Committee. I haven't been in the middle of all of those discussions. I'm keeping an open mind, but it is very important that we grow this economy, that we bring as much revenue back into this country as we possibly can.
Sure. Okay. So regardless of how that happens, you'll be on board, whether it's revenue neutral or not, is what you're saying. I want to switch gears, Congressman.
It is.
Ask you about this, because on Monday, 10 Democratic senators wrote a letter to the president asking him why his administration has not formally declared the opioid crisis a national emergency. Here's what the president originally said. This was back in August about this issue.
The opioid crisis is an emergency, and I'm saying officially right now it is an emergency. It's a national emergency. We're going to spend a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money on the opioid crisis.
And you've participated in an opioid crisis listening session led by Governor Chris Christie at the White House. What's your take on this?
I think there is no question that the opioid crisis is a national emergency. The president said that it is, and I think the fact that it hasn't been formally declared, I don't think is as important as knowing that all resources are being focused on this. Secretary Price, HHS, all of the Veterans Administration, I think every agency is focused on the opioid emergency. As a matter of fact, even later today, here in Indianapolis, I'm visiting, Secretary DeVos is coming, and she's visiting with the Hope Academy, which is a charter school focused on young people with addictions. So all agencies are focused on this. We do have to put more resources to this problem. We need to provide more treatment opportunities. We need to treat this as a disease that it is, and we've got to save lives. CDC is saying 142 people are dying a day. So it's a national emergency. The government is focused on it. Congress is focused on it.
Congressman, thank you. Susan Brooks joining us there.
Thank you.
Stay with